Okay, here's an example of classic Vietnamese modern architecture where it actually reminds me of the Netherlands more than maybe an ex-French colony. And this is typical. And in my opinion, I've been coming here since '96, so 30 years. It was more typical in the past, but it's more impressive also when they're freestanding. Like this one has a neighbor on its left. Very narrow, usually about 4, maybe 5 stories tall. But I love that. I'll always remember that about Vietnam in the 90s. I hadn't seen a country quite like that because in Holland, like in the Netherlands, lived there for a year, they have some of the world's narrowest residential buildings, but they're jammed together. And so what I saw in Vietnam, and do see still a bit as I travel around the country 5 months ago and this month, that there are less, but they still exist, the very narrow, tall, like not super tall, buildings of Vietnam. Here's another one. There's a tree a bit in front. This is 4 stories. And again, so it has neighbors, so it's not quite as dramatic as if it was freestanding. And I think maybe that's just the result that Vietnam's booming and has been for many years, so there's just more development. And what I believe is, as the country modernizes and gets wealthier, they don't want such skinny houses. Like this one's a little bit skinny, but not as extreme as in the past. All in the name of progress. Okay, I'm up at a really cool temple right now. It has a view of downtown, and I just saw a really tall, skinny building. It's actually a hotel, but it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 floors. That one's pretty impressive. Okay, in the Mekong Delta, Canto, here are a couple of examples with no neighbors. They're pretty skinny, they're pretty narrow. I don't know if it's my memory, but I seem to remember them even being more narrow. Yeah, that's a pretty good example of the freestanding, very narrow building I'm talking about. I think that one is about as narrow as it gets, and also in my memory. It's very Vietnamese. Well, it's also very Dutch. But again, in Holland, in the Netherlands, no, not freestanding. Jam-packed, neighbor upon neighbor. It's not just Amsterdam, by the way, if you've only been to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I lived in Amersfoort, Utrecht province, and traveled extensively. Okay, we found a little jumble of them together. That's a little bit looks like Netherlands. Look at that. A tropical Holland. in the Mekong Delta, where there are hundreds and hundreds of waterways and canals. Geez, you know, the Mekong Delta does have a lot in common with the Netherlands, with all their canals. And they do like to ride bicycles here, so maybe it shouldn't be a former ex-colony, it should be a former Dutch colony. Alright, here's a good series of them on this street. Right actually in the center, right along one of the major rivers flowing from Tibet to the Gulf of Thailand. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cool. Yeah, I think that's the most I've seen so far in a row. 9. Sweet. Alright, this one's pretty tall if you count the first floor as number 1. It goes up to 7 if you count the rooftop. Actually, from this perspective you can't see, but there is a rooftop. And it's probably just like a laundry room or something, but another classic Vietnamese narrow building. Well, speaking of narrow, I'm gonna do the outro from a very skinny street, a soi. They call them hem in Vietnamese. In Thai, it's called the soi, small streets. So I hope you enjoyed the video on the skinny houses, these narrow residences that make me think, was Vietnam a Dutch colony? But no, it was a French colony. And I remember 30 years ago in 1996 how striking and common it was and unique. So it's still true today, and it's still true today that it is different from Thailand. Thailand doesn't have anything near like that. It's just a common architecture style in Vietnam. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Like and comment on YouTube, please. It's good for that algorithm. Thanks again. Have fun. Cheers.